I think that for a large majority of people, today is the last day of the Christmas season. It's the 12 days of Christmas, and most people bring it to a close on today. However, technically speaking, in the church, it's the feast of the baptism of the Lord. Why? I have no idea, but that is so. For the Eastern Church, especially the Armenians, and this area has a lot of Armenians, they're connected to the Eastern Church, and this is the day. This is the day, the closing of the season. And it's a big day for them. In fact, in places in Mexico too, at least years ago, I heard many times that people didn't celebrate Christmas so much. It was a holy day, maybe a day for church, although not really. But Christmas, this day was called Little Christmas, and this was the day when, since the Magi brought the gifts for Jesus, this is the day they interchanged gifts. And I was watching the news last night. We turned on Univision about 11 o'clock last night. I don't know why. And I was listening to my Spanish. And they had these big celebrations in Mexico for the Magi. And the kids write their letters like we do to Santa Claus. And they wrote to the Magi and looking for the gifts, especially the poor. And they have big celebrations of the Magi. However, there are many people also who celebrate the end of the Christmas season on February 2nd, which is the Feast of the Presentation of the Lord, and it's 40 days after Christmas. So it's kind of a hodgepodge. You celebrate what you want, when you want, and it makes this season look kind of weird, but at the same time, maybe it's even more diverse and just richer, that it isn't just one way, but many people celebrate many different ways. But then we have this Feast of Nativity. I'm telling you, I shouldn't have stayed up so late watching Univision. They have this Feast of Epiphany. And this is the great revelation of Christ by the light of the star. Now, of course, like so many stories, we can question whether it's literal or not, and this one, just the same. It is only in Matthew, which makes it kind of strange, especially the details of this story. But in addition to that, it was believed to be written primarily to the Jewish audience. So it's very Jewish in a whole bunch of ways. One of them is it's an exact parallel of the Moses story. All the boys under 2 years of age were killed, and they tried to get them all, but Moses escaped. And that was to wipe out a generation of Jews because the Pharaoh was afraid of them growing too many, populated, and maybe would overtake them one day. Now, this story is about trying to kill the baby Jesus, so all the boys 2 years of age and younger in Bethlehem. Clearly, that's what he's saying and doing, whether or not it literally happened. But also, there is another piece to this that's very important, and it's echoed in the second reading today. The Jews were the ones who were expected to discover the Messiah. It had been foretold by the prophets for centuries. And they thought any day he was coming, and it was all clear, and they were waiting, and they didn't recognize him by and large. It's a small population that accepted him as Messiah. But these Magi from the east, the far east, people from afar who were not Jews, came because of the star. Now, the star is a very Eastern kind of story. The stars, and probably most of them were planets, I'm guessing, because they were so bright. But when they saw a bright star, or there was shooting stars, or whatever, these were signs that somebody great was born, or something historically important was taking place. So these Magi, astrologers, kings, whatever, in the east, see the star, they search all the books, and they say, something important is happening. So they came to follow the star and find this great person being born. Okay, so the first ones to come to offer gifts and to do him homage, that meant they got down on their knees and on their faces before Jesus. And the gifts that they offered, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Matthew's very clever. Gold you give to kings, incense goes to the gods. Myrrh, to prepare the body for burial. So this is Matthew's way of talking about the end as well as the beginning. It'll end on the cross. This is who this is. We know who you are, Jesus. We know. And the light has led to you. The light has revealed you. And the light has let us know that you are the light of the world. That's Epiphany. Wonderful feast. However, There's a backside to it. If you'd never read the story, you wouldn't probably catch it today, because it doesn't complete it. It has the Magi coming, and so the chisme gets out. There's these people from the east coming, and they say there's a king born to the Jews. Well, the word reaches Herod's ear. He freaks, and when he freaks, everyone freaks. It's like the old saying, when France sneezes, all of Europe gets a cold. Okay, when Herod sneezes, everybody, they sneeze and much more. So everybody's in an uproar. Who is this? Who is this? So when the Magi come, he sends for the Magi. Tell us where this baby is born. You know, I want to go do him homage too. So tell me precisely the exact spot where he's born. They say, sure. It looks like a beautiful story. Beautiful story. So they go, but an angel tells them not to go back that way. And the only giveaway is the last two lines. It says that when Herod heard this, he was upset when he heard this. And what follows but isn't read today is that he would have all the babies killed, the boys 2 years and younger. Wow, quite a story. This light, the star, not only reveals the Christ, the Messiah, the light of the world, but it also reveals the darkness. Now, I'm going to make a confession, okay? I'm 68 and a half, and since I was able to read, I've known this story. And I don't know if it was an issue of translation or the new translation is weird, or I just don't know. But I always understood that Herod sent his army to kill all the baby boys 2 years and younger to destroy Jesus. But the translation I just read 2 weeks ago said, because Jesus had escaped, he sent his army to kill all the boys 2 years and younger. If that's correct, and I still have to do some research on this, then he's not just a killer, he's ruthless. He kills not just to get Jesus, but to get back at Jesus, to get back at him. I didn't get him? Well, then I'll get all the baby boys 2 years and younger. That makes the Moses story have a fresh look, doesn't it? So it's both a beautiful and very ugly feast at the same time. Treachery, hatred, ugliness, darkness in need of light. Well, there is a little song. I'm going to ask you to humor me. They did it at the 8 o'clock Mass. I don't know if they put all their heart into it, but I'd like you to put some heart into this, okay? I'll just start it out and you join in the moment you recognize it. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Hello? This little light of mine, I'm going to let... I see some faces not singing. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Almost every kid knows this song. And thank God they do. Thank God that we have this little insignificant kind of repetitive song that captures this idea that I have a light in me. There's light. I'm not all darkness. Darkness can't destroy me. I've got the light. And for God's sake, today we have LED light. LED. Do you know how bright that is? Last night at our choir concert, the Filipino choir had these little strings of those big colored bulbs or lights, the ones that when I had in the 50s and 60s. Now look at them. They're little tiny things, but they give off all this light. They're incredible. These LEDs. LEDs. So this little LED light in me, I'm going to let it shine. There's a movie that I saw years ago. It was real big in the church religious ed circles. It was called Ruby. And it was about this black woman, a grandma, and mother and grandma, I think in Vegas, and she would go over to her daughter's apartment every day before the kids, her grandchildren would come home from school, and the mother who would pick them up, and she'd start cooking dinner and you know, just connect with her family and kind of make their day a little easier. So this day when she gets to the door, there's a note pinned to the door, and she looks up, it's an eviction notice. So she sees that her daughter is going to be evicted from this apartment. She takes it and puts it in her purse and walks in the apartment. She starts to get things ready. First thing is turn on her gospel music. Listening to her music. Oh, Jesus. She's all into her gospel music. Then she starts the collard greens and other things and starts getting this meal ready. So sometime into it, the daughter comes in with her 2 kids, and she's obviously had a bad day, and she's griping and complaining and just moaning and yelling, and the kids are kids, and they start making some noise. Would you get in your bedroom and stop making this noise? And old grandma, mother of this woman, rolls her eyes like, oh, Lord. And the woman is obviously upset. And so she starts complaining to her mom, and I got all these bills, and she's going through them, and then work was terrible today, and she's griping and moaning, complaining. And as she does it, the mother starts to hum the music louder, trying to drown out this negativity and darkness. And finally she said, Mother, what are you listening to that music? That's terrible. She goes over and turns it off. Turns it off. And her mother goes back over and says, don't turn my music off. That music gives me life. Turns it back on, and the daughter rolls her eyes. So she starts complaining some more and griping and everything. And finally, this woman, she's had it. And she says, would you stop? She said, I trained you better than that. What is your problem? You've got this, you've got your health, you've got that. And she lists a bunch of things. And there you are complaining. She says, well, I gave you better than this. I expect more from you. She kind of shocks her daughter. You're right, Mama. And so she kind of calms down. She talks about her bad day, but differently. And when she finally got her calmed down, that's when the grandma goes over, pulls out the eviction notice, says, well, I've got something for you too today. She hands this to her. And she goes, Mama! And then they both start to laugh. Because her darkness had been broken through. And her mother, the grandmother of these kids too, her mother got through to her and rediscovered that light. This is the light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. You know, I don't know about you. I do that little prayer, that card I've given so many of you. I know everyone's using it. Every single morning, somewhere between 6 and 6:30, I do this little prayer. The first one is gratitude. So I'm listing what I'm grateful for the last 24 hours. It's almost routine, but I thank God for my relative health. It's relative. Like Carol said before Mass, Father, do you have a back problem? I said, I got so many problems, honey, But relatively, I'm very healthy and I'm grateful. But you know what? One of the things I'm most grateful for, that I've got this comfortable room up there and I'm not sleeping under one of the bridges or along the river. I am so grateful for that. When it's cold like it's been for the last week, I can't even imagine. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how men and women and children sleep there night after night, week, month, some of them more than a year. I don't get it. But I'm grateful. I am so grateful. That's just a little bit of the light. There's a ton of it. Today, this Feast of Epiphany is about the light. But I'll tell you, it's not just about that star over the place of the birth of Jesus, who is the light of the world. Yeah, but that's not why Matthew wrote it. I don't think he wanted us to get overly excited about the star and shining on the place where Jesus was born. He wants us to discover the light. He wants us to be able to say, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This Feast of the Epiphany is about our light. The light that we've got to discover, and when we discover it, not let anybody or anything put it out. And I'll tell you, this world of ours, there's a lot of things that can extinguish the light. A lot of things. Pick up the newspaper every day. There are stories that can just wipe out your spirit if you let it. Or we can say, no, I can't control the world, but I can do something about me. This light, I'm going to let it shine. I choose to be a man or a woman of the light. I choose to walk in the light. I choose to give the light and take away a little bit of the darkness of this world. In short, this is the Feast of the Epiphany, and it's so important because you and I are called to be an Epiphany people.